Welcome back to Star Wars Collector Spotlight. I have here with me Matt Manning, the man, the legend. Matt, welcome.
Hey Kyle, thanks for having me on, man. This is a lot of fun to do this. So I run a collecting channel here on YouTube, and we've been trying to do something collaboratively here for a while. So I'm glad we had a chance to sit down and have this conversation. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out, I'm sure you have, but if you have not, Board Matt, you got to check him out. He talks all things of CCGs and other collectible games, as well as experts in the fields, deck and playing strategies. So check out his channel when you're done with this.
Yeah, originally I was going to do board game reviews, except I realized it was way too much editing, so I just never got around to the board part of that.
Love board games. Let's leave that to what is it, Tower, Dice
Yeah,
Tower,
Dice
whatever
Tower.
it is.
There's a lot of that stuff out there.
Yeah, that's fine by me. But we're gonna
Focusing on all the things that we hoard instead.
but outside of board games, we are going to talk today about your Star Wars collection, your journey, and your general opinions on Star Wars. So let's start from the top. For those who don't know you, where do you hail from, and what do you primarily collect?
So I'm from Michigan originally, and I kind of came into this game like many other people, or I should say, came into the universe like many other people, just watching the movies and being really fascinated by this immersive universe. And it was so unlike anything I'd ever seen. And so when my friends started playing Pokemon in like middle school, I kind of found this Star Wars game I thought was just so cool. They're using these movie stills. So this is Star Wars CCG, and I just started collecting it. I remember my first job came out right as the set Coruscant came out, and I just ended up buying like two booster boxes with like my 515 2001 job. I feel like they could, maybe minimum wage might have been less than that, but I remember buying two or three booster boxes, and I pulled an AI Maul, which is one of the big chase cards. And I didn't even really know it. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. I know for me, it hits a nostalgia spot, right? Like it's something I did kind of in these years to collect, and I remember bringing my cards over to like buddies' houses for like sleepovers and stuff. And I don't know, it just sort of hits a nostalgia spot, and I kind of rediscovered it during COVID, like many other folks that thought, "Hey, I'm gonna clean out my extra room here," and I found my card collection and haven't looked back.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are there any other there's non-Star Wars things you collect as well? I don't want to spend too much time on that, but what non-Star Wars things or even non-card things else do you collect?
Mostly cats. I have 46 cat. Not just kidding.
Oh God.
It's like they're in the background crawling on me. No, I think the Decipher products were sort of my first love, right? Because I was more, I think the design and the choices there. So Decipher made a bunch of other products. The Star Wars CCG is one I talk about a lot, but they also made Lord of the Rings, and some other less popular games. One of the ones actually I picked up recently is Young Jedi, which is a pretty cool. I say pretty cool. I feel like people are laughing, but it's an interesting game to start collecting. And so I collect a little bit of Lord of the Rings stuff, a few other CCGs. I've got Conan the Barbarian. Just the creator of the game is a friend of mine, so I kind of started collecting his stuff. But in general, I think that there's this sort of thesis that I have with collecting and with games that just because something is out of print or 25 years ago doesn't mean it wasn't like a worthwhile idea or an interesting product.
Right.
Things fail, and that's okay. And we can celebrate their failure and kind of still collect them, and look at them and say like, oh, this didn't end up working out. Most things don't long term, but it's still a nice thing to collect. And things are rare because for print runs or people throw it out or whatever the sort of story there is. I think that's a really interesting piece for me to kind of look at and think about. It's like, why didn't these work out, and why is this thing rare? Okay, like that's enough for me. So that's kind of what
Well,
keeps me in.
well, I collect $2 bills from the 1800s. That was probably never cool ever.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that was always pretty dorky. It
that was
was
like
always pretty
that's
dorky.
just rare. It's just not cool, but you know
Uh,
what? To each his own, right? But yeah, I mean, to your point, there was certainly other ideas that flopped, but a lot of it's just because the times change, the generations change, and a lot of people that were playing it and other things. This is when they were getting off to college and getting
yeah,
jobs, and like their circumstances were changing. They weren't in that sort of schoolyard environment to play this sort of stuff. And frankly, I I just kind of forgot about it in college because it's not like it's available at the local store anywhere. Like it was just disappearing. Like as soon as I stopped seeing it in the malls, because I was usually buying packs at the malls, like
Right, right.
that's when it was like, okay, I guess this game is disappearing, you know? Like that was
Yeah.
that. There was no easy access like there is now to find stuff in the deep depths of the internet.
No,
That's
absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that appeals to me about collecting actually is one, I find collecting to be somewhat of a meditative experience, right? Sort of going through finishing out sets, the way you choose to present them, the way you choose to store them. You know, like these are all things that in sort of a busy, stressful life, personal life, you know, they can bring a bit of comfort and relaxation to know, like, hey, I can sit there on a Saturday morning for 2 hours and kind of put cards away and put things in their places and finishing a set. I find that to be very relaxing, you know, sort of puts my mind at ease to complete a set. People might say that's bonkers. I mean, I think that people that like wake up at 5 a.m. to like jump in a cold lake are insane. Like to each their own. Like as a species, like we're all going to have different things that sort of bring us comfort and you know what we get utility out of. And for me, like it's having little small pieces of cardboard in plastic sleeves displayed in an order that only I know. And so
it.
that's what does it for me.
So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally invested are you into your collection?
More emotionally invested than I probably. I mean, I should. I don't know if I should say this, but I do not have insurance on it, and that is something that I worry about a little bit. I'm just like,
Yeah, I might be in that boat too.
but you know, I feel pretty emotionally. It's just it's nice to have this sort of network of collectors that I've met, people that I've kind of bonded with, and had a chance to exchange ideas and knowledge. And hey, you know, how do I find this? And like that experience and experiential part of all this is really invaluable. So I'm not going to sit here and do like some wishy-washy crap. I'm like, oh, it's all about the friends I met along the way. Like, obviously, I care a lot about physical goods that I own, but I do think like I might be more emotionally invested in sort of the community. Like if I was perma banned from ever talking to someone ever again about this stuff, that might bum me out more than actually losing my stuff. I say that, and I'm like, am I sure about that? But I feel like,
So, would an 8 sound about right?
yeah, an eight. Yeah, if you're looking for a number, maybe an eight. That's a
Okay.
very long-winded way of getting to an eight.
So, tell me, what is your short-term collecting goal at the moment, and what is your longer-term collecting goal?
Short term, I'm trying to actually maybe longer term and short term. But I'm trying to complete the Lord of the Rings TCG foil sets. There's like 1,600 of these, and I'm maybe 60 to 70% there. So I feel like I'm making progress, but you kind of need to reach with that game. The community is very global, so you're like networking with collectors in Poland to send you two things with like you know with Zalatis and like it's a little more complicated. And sometimes that can be like a fun puzzle to work out. Other times it's like, why am I working with some guy in Kosovo? Right? Like,
Oh my god. Yeah,
so
that's right, because that game had many different languages, so then you could hunt down for things in different
well,
languages.
the interesting thing about Tolkien's work as well. So Star Wars is pretty. It's an American phenomenon, right? It's popular in Europe, but it's you know pretty much like it's big in the U.S. Like that's the biggest
Like
community,
UK, maybe London, right?
right?
And
Yeah, you know you have some Germans and stuff, but like with Tolkien, right? Like his work is more like it's obviously immensely popular in the U.S., but it's also like popular in places like Poland and Czech Republic, like much more so than Star Wars. So the game sold really well over there. So some of the best collections are like, you know, Czech Republic. I got a couple guys I can kind of ping in Czech Republic to get English collections. So, anyways, it's more of sort of solving a puzzle and working out trades, which can be exhausting, but also kind of you know exciting. You know it's that feeling of getting excited about the mail again, right? That's something special.
yeah, I mean, these cards came from one place, ended up it's another part of the world, and all end up in your binder. I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing to think about. You know,
Yeah,
when you come to the end of a collection, you're like, what did this take to get here? And like, you're like, how many people did I have to talk to, trade, wheel and deal, buy, sell, you know, to get there? And it's kind of nuts. And like, that's those stories are almost like gone without the collector. Like, if you buy a complete set, like, you don't
yeah.
know. You're just like, oh, all the work's done. Like, I get this.
Yeah,
But
that's like one thing that I will say. You know, if you're thinking about getting into collecting, buying complete sets is sort of robbing. It is a better sort of financial prospect to buy complete sets.
Oh, definitely.
Symbols is a nightmare way to approach collecting, but there is something to be said about the enjoyment of collecting sets. Like, that piecing things together is sort of the joy of it, and taking the shortcut and just buying a master set. I think there's a less long term enjoyment you're going to get. Like, oh, I bought it. Now it's on the shelf. Okay, that's it. That's all there is.
And I feel differently about it with some things. So like for instance, like with Topps pumping out new sets every quarter, sometimes multiple sets or just a TV show. I'm okay with just having a Book of Boba Fett like base set so I can see all the cards that look like. I don't need every single parallel number card and like dump a fortune into it because I'm like, okay, I've seen all the cards from the set pretty much, and like I'll move on to something that I really want. Whereas with like maybe the Galaxy set with more of the art cards, like maybe I want some more of the parallels and numbers. I will buy the product for those. But if I'm going to
Right.
spend 20, $30, be like, okay, I got a feel for what this is like. I'm not crazy enough to go off the deep end with it, but, glad I could see what this was all about and move on.
Yep.
I do it mixed bag. Depends on what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's move on to our Star Wars Blitz round here. And I'm going to
Okay.
ask you a whole
Bring it
bunch
on.
of questions. So, ready for your opinions, all things Star Wars. So, let's start with what is your favorite all time Star Wars movie and why?
Movie? I almost wanted to give a troll answer there, and so just like the Rise of Skywalker or something, but I think it's got to be Empire Strikes Back. It's just a great movie, and then a distant second is Phantom Menace. I know it's controversial, but I like
Okay.
Phantom Menace.
Hey, Duel of Fates is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite Jedi and what qualities make them stand out for you?
Qui Gon, his sort of approach to Jedi principles, and the fact he's not in the Council except besides being a Jedi Master. I think there's a lot of interesting things about Qui Gon that make him sort of unique in the universe.
He's kind of ahead of his time.
Right, he's not just like another Jedi bureaucrat, right? Because that's what you think about. Like you realize in that timeline, like these guys were all just like little bureaucrats that are worried about like filling out paperwork, and Qui Gon's like, "No, I'm not about that. Like I don't
He's
need
like,
that."
nah, I'm just pure force, like straight up.
Yeah, right. I think he's an interesting character. There's a lot you can kind of do with that. So probably Qui Gon.
Which lightsaber color would you choose for yourself and why?
I'm gonna go with orange. I don't actually know who uses orange.
How about this?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like in the video game, but
Yeah, but the orange is interesting because what it symbolizes is that you use violence as a last resort. You're a very compassionate person, a very caring person. You look to resolve things outside of violence, but if it really comes to it as the last resort, that's what orange kind of stands for and symbolizes. So that's interesting.
interesting. I read that purple is purple because Samuel L. Jackson wanted a purple one.
Well, it's purple is interesting because it shows that you have handling or have dabbled in like an aggressive dark side approach. You respect that and you understand it. So like his knowledge, power, and expertise in the dark side allowed him to like overtake Palpatine essentially, because he wasn't going to be fooled by the usual Sith tricks. Like he could do that the same stuff essentially, but you're like teetering on the brink, right? You're like, okay, I get it. I'm still a good guy, but like I can play like sheepdog on your wolf essentially.
Yeah,
no,
God, made him into a character. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
no, it's all good. What is your favorite starship in the Star Wars universe, and what appeals to you about it?
I'm probably gonna go with the Executor, right? The Imperial class Star Destroyer, the Super Star Destroyer. I think there's just I've always had kind of a fascination about like big, like everything's in one place, right? Like this idea of like a floating city. It's the same thing I'm like into like battle, carriers, right? With these like giant, massive floating cities.
Okay.
That's like an interesting concept to me, and like the idea that you have this Super Star Destroyer. It's like the biggest one ever. Like that's a cool idea. And also, it's lame how it crashes. It's like someone kamikazes into the flight deck, and then I guess it's kind of a lame way to go, to be honest.
Which Star Wars? Oh no, wait. If you could have any force power, which one would you choose, and how would you use it?
Probably just the whole force movement thing. It'd just be nice to be able to like grab objects more easily, right? It's like
Just like
save.
lift up furniture, like The wife
Oh yeah,
wants
like
the couch moved. You
the,
just lift
the
it.
remote drops behind the TV or drops behind the couch. Just better lift it. And I think anyone that answers like Jedi mind trick, like they're a little bit like there's something kind of sociopathic right there. It's like I want to be able to control people's actions and behavior. Like okay, why do you want to do that? Like, why are you thinking that?
uh, which Star Wars planet would you most like to visit? What draws you to that particular location?
I think probably Coruscant. I think the idea of just like a New York as an entire planet is super fascinating. It's something that's probably unknowable, but I think there's this moment in Book of Boba, not Book, Mandalorian season 3, which I think it was a problematic season, but like there's like this rock where like, oh yeah, this used to be the highest peak of Coruscant. Like, that's like a cool idea that there's a city built just thousands of feet up, and this verticality idea is really fascinating.
Yeah, especially with the like lower levels and this like underground concept. Like I'm dying to see some show where they just like deal with all the like underlayers and underbelly of Coruscant, like the gangs and crime and like the grittiness. Like there's so much ripe potential there. And
Absolutely.
and like you're right, like Mandalorian season 3, we were able to see more of the planet. We've obviously seen it from the movies, but every time we get a chance to see more of the city, like it's really cool because there's so much to do, there's so much
Yeah.
to see. Who is your favorite Star Wars villain, and what makes them such a compelling character?
Grand Moff Tarkin. Grand Moff Tarkin is the most interesting villain in Star Wars because I think choosing a Jedi feels like you're hacking the system or dark whatever, a Sith Lord. Grand Moff Tarkin was just like a methodical like jerk who is has this careful approach. He's using systems to navigate, and I mean Vader was just his toy, right? Like he was the one Imperial bureaucrat that like Vader's like, okay, I gotta listen to Tarkin, and I think that's like an interesting villain where he's actually way scarier than Vader because
Yeah, as a military strategist, like he was always like many steps ahead, especially of his like underlings or fellow political officers, I guess, whatever you'd call it, always having something over them or always putting them in their place.
yeah, right. So I think probably Tarkin's my favorite villain. I mean, we didn't really see a lot of him. We just saw him obviously in one movie. You kind of see him briefly in other stuff, but if they explored him a little bit more, I guess he's also in some of the Clone War cartoons and stuff.
Have you read his? There's a book on Tarkin. Have you read that? It gives like
I
his backstory and like how he like came about and his whole thought process. It's kind of interesting.
I'll have to check that out. I haven't really gotten too much into the Star Wars books. So that's the thing about the universe is it's almost too big for me sometimes. Like there's too much stuff. So where do you just leave me in my little corner here to look at my cards, right?
It's all good. Which droid from the Star Wars saga do you find the most endearing, and why?
I'm gonna go with IG-88. Just trying just out there being bounty hunting. I mean, I think the whole idea of like IGs as like these assassin droids is like a pretty interesting, notion that you just created a killer robot that you unleashed on the world. So I'm going with IG-88.
It's pretty badass. For the longest time, I always wanted to know more about him. I feel like we got a little taste of it in Shadows of the Empire and N64. Like he was there, and like I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. But yeah, when once Mandalorian came out and they showed what IG-11 could do, that was really like scratching an itch of like
I
what
do
is
remember a
this
little
idea?
OP. I thought it was a little OP, and I was like, "Come on!" I mean, I know stormtroopers are terrible, but like I thought it was like a little OP.
What is your favorite lightsaber duel in the entire Star Wars franchise, and what makes it special to you?
I think it's got to be in Star Wars Rebels. I think it is when Darth Maul goes to find Obi Wan, and they have this like very brief duel, and Obi Wan takes out Darth Maul. It's just interesting because I think you'll notice that like the move set he uses is the same. Like it switches lightsaber stances from like Qui Gon's to his own, and he like tricks Maul into thinking he's going to use the same move that he used in Qui Gon essentially. But I think it's interesting. It's also like a really nice closure for the character, and the fact it was like not even a long fight and Obi-Wan just like kind of dominates it. It's a really interesting choice. And I don't know, Rebels is great. I wish the animation was a little bit better in Rebels because I think people don't really give it a chance because I think it looks like a N64 game. But I think Star Wars Rebels is just really solid.
It didn't quite have the same investment like Clone Wars did, but that was, I mean, Clone Wars is like cutting edge. Like it's literally the greatest like cartoon quality like of all time. So it's like kind of hard to, judge that when they were really pushing the barrier of what an animated show could do.
So,
And
yeah,
but I
Heroes.
would also say Rebels as you go forward, like later in the seasons, it gets more like adult themed. Like it's less as like a kiddie show and more of definitely geared to the adult fan.
Yeah, absolutely. I also just think like conceptually, Clone Wars. I always struggle with Clone Wars. It's like 9 seasons or whatever, 8 seasons, but the Clone Wars were only like 2 years, and like it feels like there's too much content. Like there's too much drama that happens in those 2 years to have 8 seasons worth, right? So it always felt like kind of crowded to me. Versus Rebels is like we're just playing. We're in a sandbox. We're gonna play a game. Tell some stories. We're really not constrained by like this war that's only 2 years long, right? Like I don't know. That's my own little canon gripe there.
Well, yeah, I think part of it is like they're trying to do this like while the main movies are happening like at this point, this is what's happening in a different part of the galaxy. So in reality, like some of those episodes almost kind of run parallel a little bit, but you kind of have to be like really deep into it to know where exactly, all this lines up to. Like that's like next level fan stuff.
Right.
But yeah, as a whole, like I think it'll be great that they're going to take some of these animated characters and put them into live series. I think we'll see a lot of this stuff in Ahsoka, if not Mandalorian. I mean, they're taking these characters
I'm
and
really
putting.
excited for Ahsoka. I think Ahsoka is gonna be great. I'm gonna try to do some episode reviews, sort of on my own YouTube channel to sort of reflect on the show. So, but yeah, Ahsoka's a great character.
If you were to join either the Rebel Alliance or Galactic Empire, which side would you choose and why?
Probably Rebel Alliance. I mean, I think the Empire. I do like systems and I do like order, but I think there's just something about being like a little scummy that's always appealing to me. Like a little unwashed, a little uncouth. So
Okay. Who is your favorite non-human character in Star Wars, and what about them resonates with you?
I go with Chewie, right? I think the sort of Wookiee roar was something that I like loved and like that used to communicate with my brother and sister like that. So I think I'll go with Chewie.
Okay. What is your favorite line or quote from the Star Wars films, and why does it resonate with you? I'll accept short scene.
I think it's sort of that line about the describing Mos Eisley as like a hive of scum and villainy because it's like a
Mhm.
kind of an overwritten line, but it's also great. Like a lot of lines in the original trilogy are a little like overwritten, and
Well, for Alec Guinness, I guess his style it kind of makes sense for him as an actor. It's like this theater, like I
right,
don't
right.
operatic, almost just over the top, Shakespearean. Almost. I don't know. Like
Yeah, no,
it's
like it really feels more like a space opera than anything else, and I think some of the later movies lose that a little bit, but A New Hope especially feels very space opera. Like the circle is now complete. I am the master, and like that sort of stuff is very Shakespearean. But I think that probably some of the best lines are from A New Hope. Uh, Empire is some good stuff. I think the "I know" line, which is really great, and but I'll probably go with the sort of the hive of scum and villainy.
if you could have a mentor from the Star Wars universe, who would you choose, and what wisdom would you seek from them?
Go with like Yaddle because she still had her hair compared to Yoda, right? I don't
Okay.
so go with Yaddle.
What do you want to learn about?
I don't know, probably just like patience. I've always thought, like, to be honest, I don't know if I would have been a good Jedi. I think I have a little like get a little impatient, like all the stuff, like, oh, it's just a shoe material goods. I'm like, I have a lot of material goods, guys. Like I can't just a shoe material goods and like I don't know. This is this Jedi cult thing is for me. So uh
Okay, okay. What is your favorite Star Wars spin-off or standalone film from the Disney era, and why?
it's got to be Rebels. Easy answer. I think Star Wars Rebels. Highly recommend. I guess was that he did the greenlit like the fourth series or something, but I'll go with Rebels. But if not that, Rogue One is sort of I think Rogue One's a really great movie.
Okay. Which Star Wars species or alien race do you find the most fascinating and why?
I'll go with the Trandoshians. I think they're like the lizard people. I
Hmm.
think Bosk is one. I think they have this like ongoing beef with like Wookiees. I find like interspecies conflict to be like really fascinating, like blood feuds. Like it's kind of woven in a little bit, but I think I'd go
They're
the
the natural hunters, right? Like,
Yeah, and I think they went and like did some work with the Empire to help enslave the Wookiees, and just yeah. So I think it's kind of an interesting,
yeah,
go.
it's kind of creepy and kind of kind of interesting. What is your favorite lightsaber design or hilt style, and what attracts you to that particular design?
I mean, I'm gonna have to go with the dual bladed, right? Like Maul's, just because I remember when I saw it, it was one of those iconic moments as a kid. I was like, "Holy crap, he has two!" Right? And
Yeah,
so it's just like that moment. It's kind of captured. I don't know if we used to boff. It's like you create like a PCP pipe and put padding on it and like fight each other as kids. And I tried making a double sided one, and it was terrible to fight with. Terrible, but it's a cool design.
it is cool. If you were hired to act in the next Star Wars movie or show, what would you want your character to be like?
I would just want to be like a rebel pilot that like explodes, and I get to have a cool like she's gonna blow like you like some of the Return of the Jedi lines that are just like throwaway lines from like on
Okay.
pilots. I don't need a major part here. I just want to have a cool death scene as my X-wing explodes. Actually, I'll go with I want to be in a Y-wing because they're
A
kind of
Y wing, like a bomber. Okay.
the Y-wings are kind of lame, so I want to be in a Y-wing.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like a wing or something like like all over the place.
Maybe go with the B wing, but I would opt out like X wing. It's too common, right? It's too basic. Like I don't want to be in an X wing. I want to give me something interesting. Uh,
Okay. Okay. Who is your least favorite Star Wars character, and what specifically don't you like about him?
I'm gonna just not talk about the new Disney trilogy. I mean, I don't hate it as much as other people do, but I think I'll probably go with like Padme. I've always thought she was just like kind of poorly written, and like they just produce a lot of these. Like her lack of character development makes Anakin's character arc a lot less interesting. Like the whole like the sand is rough and like their age difference is weird, right? Like you
Yeah.
remember like she's like 12 years older than he is. He's like 8 and she's like 18 or something. It just always
Yeah.
it felt a little off, and like the way they chose to write it was a bit odd, right?
It was a choice. Yeah.
Right, like, if you think about it, it's like, oh, fast forward, he's now 17 and she's like, "I'm 30." It's like kind of a weird dynamic a little bit, and
Mm.
I think she could have just used maybe a little more, a little more focus on, like, developing her, which would have developed the arc a bit better for Anakin.
Who's your favorite bounty hunter in the Star Wars galaxy, and what qualities make them stand out for you?
I'm gonna go with probably, Bossk, because I think he was just sort of a cool, 10-second character, not even, maybe 5-second character in Empire. But
Okay.
Bossk was cool.
Yeah, you could. We kind of spoke about the Trandoshans. Which Star Wars moment has the most emotional impact on you, and why?
Which Star Wars what?
Moment.
A moment. I'm probably gonna say the I am your father moment. I know it's probably a lot of them, but like that was like one of the first moments watching TV and like being shocked by something, right? You're like, oh wow, like you can be surprised and filled with wonderment a little bit at like the way writing is and like an arc. So I'm gonna go with the I am your father moment.
Okay. Who's your favorite Rebel Alliance member, and what inspires you about their dedication to the cause?
I always liked Wedge because he felt like a sort of tertiary character, right? He just exists in this.
Okay.
You have like Landos and Lukes and stuff, and then you have like Wedge, who's there, like as like the Red Squadron leader kind of thing.
Okay. Which Star Wars species or alien race would you want as your loyal companion, and why?
Interesting. Maybe Wookiees. Yeah, it seems like kind of fun to have. I bet they smell a little bit though. Do Wookiees kind of look like they might smell like a big hairy dog, like get a little wet? But I'll go with Wookiees.
Big- okay.
Big hairy wet Wookie.
What is your most prized Star Wars collectible?
Probably my sort of, I think just speaking of like my master set of Star Wars CCG, it took a long time for me to get there. I have everything, and that kind of it feels nice. It's nice to know I collected it all, and there's not really much else I want. I want for naught with the collection, and that's sort of nice. So I think just the collection as a whole, sort of.
Okay. If you could have any one collectible item ever for Star Wars, what would it be? And it doesn't have to exist, but if there was one, what would be your grail?
I don't know. I think there's like some like movie prop stuff. Like there's this whole realm of stuff that I wasn't really around for, but like I would love to have like a signed stormtrooper helmet from from like the original movie that's signed by like Mark Hamill. Right? Like that's verified. Like this is a prop they used in the movie, and it's signed by, members of the cast. Like that feels like that'd be pretty cool to have like in some sort of display. And it's all verified that it's from the original movie, etc.
That'd be pretty sick. What is your biggest regret from your collecting journey?
Probably the amount of money I spent. Yeah.
Okay. So before we wrap up, what is there anything that you want other collectors to know of things that you're hunting for, things that maybe they can dig up, or what you're actively trading and buying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm downsizing my Star Wars collection a little bit. We've got a baby coming in 2 months, so I've been told I'm gonna express orders to clear out some space. So I'm trying to streamline the collection a little bit. That doesn't mean I'm going to do it successfully, but I think there's some Lord of the Rings stuff I'm trying to finish out, and then just kind of get rid of some of the extra, rares and stuff that doesn't have a place in a deck or in a set. It's like, why do I have it? For a while, what I was doing is the way I sort of collected Star Wars CCGs, I would just buy a collection and then pull out the stuff I need, and then you'd have this extra and the extra, extra, extra. Sometimes you sell it, but other times it just piles up, and now I'm kind of like, all right, I have a lot of extra now. Like, and what do I do with all this extra? The Jabba's Palace rares that are worth a quarter or a nickel or something. But it feels weird even selling them for a nickel, right? It's like, oh, it's like so little money that maybe I'll just keep it instead.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like if it helps somebody else complete their collection or helps somebody play the game or somebody that hasn't, then you're doing everybody a favor and benefiting the hobby as a whole versus it sitting there without any value to you.
That's the real crux of it all, right? It's like moving things from my collection where they're going to sit or not really be appreciated to someone else, right? Like I don't need some of the stuff I have, kind of over collected during COVID because there's very little to do. But I think collecting is fun. I want there to be new collectors to join and continue growing the community. I think that's what's fun for me, right? It's this sort of grassroots nature of it. But it doesn't work if everyone's just sitting on everything.
Definitely. Well, Matt, thanks for taking the time with this. This has been awesome. And for all those who have been listening, again, at Board Matt on YouTube, check out his channel for sure. He's got plenty of great content. We sometimes coordinate stuff.
Sure.
But he's got his own thing with all different things: Star Trek, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and so much more. So definitely check that out.
Thanks so much, Kyle. This has been a blast, and hopefully see you for a future video soon.
Sounds good. See you soon.